Welcome, everyone, and welcome to episode two, season two, episode two of Verifiably Random. I'm Mark,
Hi, I'm Min.
And hello, I'm John.
and how are you guys doing today?
Hey, good, good. It's a very exciting time, We're popular again. The crypto industry is popular again, and that to me is great because you know what? Here's the thing. I've talked before briefly about my three crypto jobs: Consensus, Cardano, and Algorand. Right? They're the kind of bulk of it. And every time I took one of those jobs, it's been a real downer. It's been a real bear market. When I was in Consensus, notably, it was like every 6 months people were laid off, and it wasn't very fun. So it's great to see some excitement back and some hope and kind of general growth of the entire industry, because of course it means there's more money knocking around, more startups can emerge, more entrepreneurs take risks, and in general, of course, for proof of stake networks like ours, the more money is the more security. I mean, that's by definition, that's how proof of stake
And
works.
it looks very much that was driven by the elections in the US, right? I think it was
Yeah.
interesting. Well, first, I think it was good that the election was kind of decided quickly, as opposed to like what many people feared. There would be like a long period of uncertainty, and who knows what's going to happen. At least it seems like no matter which side of the aisle you're in, it seemed at least it was decided quickly, and it provided some sort of certainty.
Is it a thing that the election could have gone on longer than it did?
Well, I mean,
Oh
that's
yeah,
what happened. That's what happened 4 years ago, right? That like
yeah,
dragged on and on and on. But at least now it was decided fairly quickly. But what was also interesting to me was that a lot of the pro crypto candidates, no matter whether like they were Democrats or Republicans, won. And so it
yeah,
seems that that bodes well for the industry as a whole. There's seems to be a lot more support on the legislative side to push a pro crypto agenda, and specifically make it non-partisan, which I think is so important, because this cannot be like technology should be partisan, right? Like
yeah.
it shouldn't be that AI is Democrat and and anti AI is Republican, or vice versa. It should be, this is a technology. It should be supported by everybody, and so it seems to me that that is starting to happen with a lot more kind of candidates that are pro crypto on both sides of it.
You're right. I mean, Mark, spot on. And in fact, I think there was Brian Armstrong posted something around the live tracking of all the candidates, the pro crypto, the anti crypto. I think this is going to be the most pro crypto Congress that we're going to have in the U.S., which is fantastic. Again, it's like bipartisan, like across the aisle. So I think that's really exciting. And John, I can't believe you being on the other side of the Atlantic did not pay attention to all the craziness that has been happening
No,
there.
no,
But
no.
I
Don't get
hope
me
you
wrong.
did realize the fantastic positive results that the
No, don't get
crypto
me wrong.
markets
My
have
X feed has been choked by U.S. election stuff. I just didn't realize that I thought it was one of these things that it gets decided in a night who wins. But I suppose I can understand if the votes are close or there's
Yeah,
recounts
the
or
race is
whatever.
tight. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But from my point of view, as someone who's like, it didn't have a vote in it, like obviously totally separate country to where I live in Ireland. For me, it's just the external perception is just that like there's now not a negative vibe around crypto. There's more of a, hey, this is an industry we want to protect. That's kind of what I feel the vibe is now. And when you have that, when you have this kind of, you know what, we're going to protect this innovation. We don't want this to leave the United States and be in Singapore or other places where it's traditionally more friendly or whatever. That is a good thing. It's a good thing for everyone who's working in any tangentially related or directly related, enterprise within our industry.
Yeah, and I also think that as an industry, we have to continue to kind of educate people about what blockchain is and what they can do. And I think that is still an issue. If I talk to friends of mine that are not in the blockchain industry, still a lot of people have a negative perception of what it is. And so I think it requires kind of a lot of continued education about the benefits and the use cases that blockchains enable, and that falls on us. And I think specifically as Algorand, I think we're really well positioned there, because we are focusing on real world use cases, and so we can show the receipts, we can show all of the benefits of using a blockchain. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to kind of keep pushing that message out there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if all you hear are uh lawsuits or legal issues or kind of concerns around what's happening in the space, that's the news that you get. But if you yeah, I think the sentiment, I think for sure has has improved, and we're out there. We need to get out there and just start talking about all the amazing use cases that are being built, not just on Algorand, of course, on Algorand, but not just on Algorand, on blockchain in general, because I think part of our job is to kind of build a narrative for the overall industry as a whole. In fact, I believe, John, you were out there representing in some of our industry events. How was that?
Yeah, so I took a long flight over to Bangkok. I guess it would have been even longer for you, maybe. I don't know, actually. If you're traveling from
the curvature of the Earth, it's so hard to predict. Where that path goes.
Yeah, geography is not my strong suit, so I'll stop. But yeah, I went to Bangkok from Ireland. It's like a 14, 15-hour flight or something like that. But it was great. I'd never been to Thailand before. Very interesting to see. A bit like kind of a grittier version of Singapore, I would say. We announced staking rewards to the crowd at the Staking Summit 2024, which was held in the Siam Kempinski in Bangkok. And so it was good. As I mentioned to others when I came back, I didn't know anyone there. There was no one, because staking's not our thing, right? We've just started it. So the crowd was a whole staking crowd whose business is staking and is in the staking industry in some capacity. And so I didn't know anyone, and it's good because we want to be giving the message of good news to new ears, and get more eyes on how great Algorand has become over the last couple of years with all the development, marketing, and community engagement. And so I was up on stage, the same stage that Vitalik actually was on, and I got to see him. It was cool to see him.
And you say you didn't know anybody. You know Vitalik. I mean,
yeah, but like we're not friends or anything like that. But yeah, he was the only person who I recognized there. And cool. But it was cool. Got up on stage, and we Mark and his team, Alexa and the guys had put together a wonderful deck that to really bring people on the journey of what staking rewards are all about, why we're doing it, how we're going to do it, how you can get involved. We were able to bring everyone on the journey, and we got some good shots that we can use to promote staking when we go live, hopefully this next month in December. And what
was the vibe like there? Was that before or after the election? Remind us.
That was after. Yeah, that would have been after.
Okay. Yeah. What was the room like? I mean,
They were extremely excited. And what's interesting is that like one of Vitalik's core messages in his keynote was that they're going to be reducing the amount of ETH required to get involved in staking. And I think it's interesting because it's taking a leaf out of our book, really, which is like to promote staking to the individual rather than the institution. And it's good to see this stuff happen. And a lot of excitement out there because, like I said at the very start of the podcast, it's interesting to see Bitcoin at 90K. I remember when it was $9, right? And now it's at $90,000.
Oh.
The market cap, obviously, I've got no idea where the market's going to go. Could go to 1 million, could go to 0. But the market cap of Bitcoin right now and the broad Web3 or crypto industry is still like a few $1 trillion. It's $2.5, $3 trillion kind of territory. And if you look at other major asset classes, whether that's precious metals or derivatives, all of those, if you take gold as an example, you're talking about like 11 trillion just for, say, the gold metals industry. And so I think there's a lot of scope for crypto to grow. I think it's an important asset class. The idea of a self-sovereign digital asset that's hard money. I think that's an interesting asset class, and I think that it can grow to be kind of peers with market capitalization like gold or other things like that. I mean, who knows? But that's what I think. I think it's going to grow. But I think it is really important, and we shouldn't be afraid to celebrate it because, as I mentioned, proof of stake networks like Ethereum, like Cardano, like Algorand, that rely upon staking to secure the network become intrinsically more secure when the price of the token increases, and that's a good thing for the security and decentralization of the network.
So were you at DEF CON as well? Did you, because DEF CON was just right after staking rewards, right?
Yes, it was. No, I had to come back to Ireland to get back into my usual daily work.
So you missed our Algo Cafe. You didn't go to our Algo Cafe.
Wow.
No, and also I missed the Algorand CAN, my friend.
And you missed the Algorand CAN. That too. Yeah. So
I've had like so many people ping me and be like, "Can I get one of those cans?" I'm like, I don't have one of those cans.
Mark, how do we get one of those cans? No, but
Yeah, so
tell us about
we'll
DEF
do
CON.
special. Normally the cans have water, but maybe for John, we'll put something else in those cans.
In order of
John,
preference,
don't get too excited. I think Mark means fizzy water, just fizzy water.
No, I'll take an IPA, then a Negroni, and then maybe.
And you mix them?
But definitely, by the way, if I want everyone to know out there, I want everyone to know, if I was in marketing, those cans would have had whiskey in them.
Well, we've actually touched on like the main two topics of this podcast. We've touched on staking rewards. That's of course one area where we kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into. And then we touched on the Algorand CAN campaign. So that's kind of the second part of the podcast. So maybe let's move on and let's talk about the first part, staking rewards. And so John, like, what's special about staking rewards in Algorand?
Yeah, and okay, I'll start a little bit for a minute with the journey. You know, when I came to Algorand first, nearly 3 years ago, it took me by surprise when I was researching Algorand more deeply during the interview process that it didn't pay for the block production process. Every other network I'd ever worked on or seen essentially did. It was a core tenet of cryptocurrency that you reward those who are processing the transactions. And of course, the original vision for Algorand was that folks would altruistically stake their tokens in order to support the network, you know, for the betterment of the network. I think, you know, we have not seen that really transpire at the scale that we would like to see it. And so, you know, in our experience, what happens is some folks do get involved and do stake, but many don't have the motivation to run the computer or monitor the computer and maintain a node in proper execution. And so we took the view that maybe it made sense to pivot from that original thesis that, you know, we wouldn't reward the block production process and the fees would just go to a sink and stay there. And instead to use those fees that are generated by the network to pay for something. And in this case, you're paying for the operation of consensus execution or staking. And you're paying essentially by doing so for the security of the network. And so we wrote a white paper. We put it out, I guess maybe a year ago at this point, talking about how this might look. You know, what would it be like if we took the step to reward the block production process? How might we do that? What are the things that we would change in the code in the node? How would the game theory aspects work? You know, what are the new considerations? When you introduce money into something, there's always new angles of gaming things and stuff like that. We wanted to make sure it was watertight. And we put that paper out there. We talked to the community about it. And I guess over the last kind of year or so since that paper went out, we have, as a team, done a bunch of stuff. We have formalized a solution on how we, formalized the code changes that we would need to make to make this happen. Implemented 99% of those changes in the Algorand core code base, which is on GitHub. We've also, I think, notably come up with a bunch of different staking options that are going to really help people because, of course, not everyone will want to run their own computer on their own and run their own node. Some people will want to take an easier path, but still be involved in the staking process. So, it's a huge pivot for Algorand. I think probably in the time I've been here, maybe the biggest change that I've seen. It is a change that impacts the economics of the network in a way because people are now going to have financial rewards distributed to them. It affects the philosophical core of the network. How we thought about consensus and how we thought about security, and of course, it's a technical change as well. But I think one for the better. I think one that is going to encourage a huge amount of organic nodes to be run. One that's going to both decentralize maximally and secure maximally the network, and one that I think will foster new industry. I think that when you have a new way to earn a reward based upon holding your algo, but doing so with meaningful work. And of course, so we did have governance before where you would vote and you would get some rewards, but it was every quarter and it was a bit slow. Now we're going to be, your rewards come to you instantly. Within 2.8 seconds, you get the reward for the block that you've produced. I'm excited to see what new economies emerge from it. Staking as a service, maybe, for example. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a whole bunch of different ways you can run a node yourself. You can get involved using DeFi with liquid staking tokens, or indeed you can use a form of delegated staking.
And it's interesting to see that the number of nodes is already increasing. Like it's not, the staking rewards are not live yet, but you can already see a trend where people are starting to get excited in our community about like setting up a node. We see questions come in, saying, how do I set up a node? What's the best way to do it? What kind of computer do I use? And so you can already see the excitement happening and the number of actual nodes going up, which is super interesting to see.
I think, yeah, for me, the most exciting thing is actually this new economy, this new kind of like what it's going to do for the ecosystem. And I want to talk about that for sure. But before that, Mark, can you, because I know you guys have been thinking about this and sort of like putting this together, can you sort of talk about like what's unique, or John, both of you, what's unique about our staking, about Algorand staking compared to some of the other, because as you said, John, staking is not, it's not new for most ecosystems. It's new for us. But there are some unique aspects about how we have implemented consensus incentivization that I think it'd be good just to kind of talk through together.
I mean, the thing I like about it is and John, feel free to jump in, but the thing I like about it is the idea that there's no slashing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's fundamentally different compared to like Ethereum and some of the other chains out there. I think it's very unique to Algorand that there's no slashing. And I think it's exciting because I think the reason why there's no slashing is because we actually use the advanced cryptography to ensure the security of the network, and we don't need economic disincentives to make sure bad actors, don't behave badly. And so that to me is a very, very essential component and differentiator of our program. In addition to the fact that you actually don't have to lock up, your stake. You can keep your algos in your account, right? And you stake them, and they're in your account. You can still work with them. You can still have them do other stuff, and so the system dynamically adapts the probability of you being able to kind of propose a block depending on how many algos you have at any point in time in your account. And so the idea that there's no slashing and there's no lockup and you still get the reward, I think is a phenomenal and very, very unique part of this program.
Yeah, for me, it's the no lockup that's really exciting. Because I think we're almost conditioned just by how all the other ecosystems work, that for you to participate in consensus, for you to stake your assets into the protocol, that there is some sort of lockup, whether it's days and in some cases weeks, right? Like it depends on the protocol. The fact that we have this flexibility built into how we are going to allow our ecosystem and users and participants stake, I think that's going to be a game changer for how people think about staking, which is what I kind of love about this implementation. Like it's no longer the standard to think about a lockup period. It is flexibility is the new way, And
I like to say you can have your stake and eat it too, right? So you can keep your algos in your account. There's no slashing risk, and you still get rewarded.
Yeah.
It is cool. And then just to kind of click into some of the things you've said, when if someone was to bring, say, 10,000 or maybe 100,000 algos online as an example, and then one was executing consensus with that, right? So you have 100,000 algo that's being staked. If you were to move 50,000 algo out of that account into, say, you send it to your friend or send it to pay a bill or whatever, you would instantly then, well, not instantly, but very quickly be voting with 50,000 algo. So you can essentially add into your account new funds, and they'll come online automatically once that account itself is online, executing consensus. And indeed, you can remove funds from your account, and you can remove them all the way down to the minimum of 30,000 before you will stop earning rewards.
Oh, John, I didn't realize that. So you actually, as long as your account is online, whatever algos that you add to that account then automatically participates as well.
Yeah, because it's kind of like you bring the account online rather than the algos online.
The algos online. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a nuanced distinction I didn't realize, to be honest.
Yeah. And so we have these limits, and there's technical reasons why we don't want too much stake on a single computer in case the computer falls over, blows up or short circuits or whatever. And we also, for technical reasons around data propagation, we didn't want to have too few algo being online. We wanted to limit the maximum possible number of nodes. Okay, and so the thresholds for running a node on your own are 30,000 minimum algo. Okay, has to be in your account in order to earn rewards. And a 70 million, which is of course a problem for essentially no one except for exchanges. No one at the foundation or no one in the community has to worry about that. But 70 million, if you're a Binance or something, you can't put more than 70 million online on the same account. And so once you're within those boundaries, you earn. And just to click into something Mark said about slashing, although we don't have slashing, and it's an interesting feature of the network, we do have the notion of appropriate voting. So the protocol will check your node, and if it's not voting correctly, and of course this would never happen if you're just running a normal node. If you're running a modified or you're trying to be malicious, the network will notice that and it will remove you from the staking set. And when you're removed, you stop earning rewards, and the only way to earn rewards again is by re-registering. And so you have to pay a small fee, something like 2 algo or something like that, to re-register. So it's not really slashing because it's only 2 algo to come back online. But if you're malicious with your node or you're not voting correctly, the protocol will notice this and you'll get kicked out. And so, yeah, there's lots of different technical aspects to this.
So the other thing I think that's interesting is that, and this is not new with staking rewards, it's always been the case with Algorand, is that actually running a node is fairly easy and doesn't require a huge amount of computing power, right? I think that's the other element. Like, as you know, John, I'm a node runner. I'm a proud node runner myself, and I'm running it on a 10-year-old Mac Pro, and have had no issues with it. So you don't really need a big computer. I think your recent Mac Mini, you probably should do the job, right? If you get one of these recent Mac Minis, it just
definitely
would work, wouldn't it?
Yeah, totally. Actually, the only problem with a Mac Pro, in my view, Mark, is that it's quite heavy on the juice. That computer would eat a lot of electricity generally. But yeah, it's for me, the sweet spot is a Mac Mini. Apple put them out. People know I'm a bit of a fanboy, but like, it's small, it sips the juice, it's an ARM-based computer, it runs at 10 watts or something like that, so you're not going to notice it on your electricity bill. And it's perfect with 16 gigs of RAM and the 10 cores or whatever that's in it. It's a perfect device to run consensus. But you don't have to really be at that level. I know in our documentation we say 16 gigs of RAM, and it is true that is the recommended spec, but you can get away with less than that. You can run a node with 8 gigs of RAM at the moment, and again, you don't need a gigabit internet connection, which we recommend. You can probably get away with around 200 megabits or so. Of course, the stronger the computer, the better, and something like a Mac Mini is overspec'd and will be perfect far into the future for running your node. But if you have a computer that is not at that level of the recommended spec, you should still try to get involved, because I think that most people will find that they can run it on.
It's funny you'd say that a Mac Mini is overspec'd. I know there's other networks where you cannot buy a Mac that is like big enough to be able to run a node, right?
In fact,
so there are networks like that.
I wanted to take this moment. This is my brand new nano texture display Mac M4 Max MacBook Pro that I treated myself. I saved for a very long time to get this, and I got it. Now, this computer is obscene. It's basically the best computer you can buy from Apple in a laptop. Now, let me tell you something. It's got 128 gigabytes of RAM. 128. And
wow, you really splurged.
Right. And still, this is the best computer you can buy, and I still can't run a Solana node on it because I need 256 gigs of RAM. Now, that says something. So yes, it really is true.
And you probably don't have a 10 gig internet connection to your house either.
By the way, the Mac Mini does actually have a 10 gig NIC as an optional extra. You can put a 10 gig network interface card in it. But really, the people, if cryptocurrency is supposed to be decentralized, data center owners are not decentralized. If you want to have your staking run by the people, you got to have reasonable hardware requirements. And of course, something like a Mac Mini is a perfectly reasonable thing to get involved.
What I want to do is I want to run a node on my Android phone.
Definitely possible. The only problem with an Android phone, it wouldn't be the compute resources or the RAM actually, but it would rather be the fact that the network connection is not as reliable.
It's too slow.
Yeah. You don't want to be the bad node that gets kicked out of that.
I know.
And then you have to re-register. I mean, that, oof.
So can we talk a little bit about, John, about the mechanics of how this works and the actual like reward? Like how much are so people are getting the reward for not for voting, but they're getting the reward for proposing a block, right? Like
Right,
voting
exactly.
doesn't count. You have to be proposing a block, and with every single time you propose a block, you get a reward. What kind of reward do you get?
Yeah, sure. So, and by the way, just to let people know, I mean, this is in the white paper as well, but like we thought heavy about what to reward. Like, should you reward someone who does all three steps in consensus, which is like proposing, validating, and soft vote and then certify vote? Should we reward a small amount for the certify vote? We kind of played with lots of different ideas, but in the end, the strongest, least gameable approach, least kind of like fraught with error approach was to reward the block proposer only. And so essentially, yes, you got to be the winner of the person who proposes a block in order to. You got to be the person whose block goes onto the blockchain to get the reward. We pay the rewards, as Min I think said earlier, instantaneously, right? We pay it in real time. So when you mine a block or mint a block, I should say, because it's not really mining, you will, as soon as that block's in the chain, you'll get your reward. And so that's very cool. I mean, so people won't be waiting, 5 days, 10 days, as you have to on some networks to get paid. You'll get paid instantly. And essentially, under the hood, what will happen is, on day one when we go live, let's say you're a person, you got 30,000 algo, you hit the minimum, you got your 30,000, and you want to bring your account online. Step one, you'll have to do a key reg, which essentially is creating new staking keys, because of course you've got to sign these blocks that you create with keys. So you create these new keys. This will all be done for you, by the way. We have an application that'll do all these steps. I'm just talking about what the app does. You're not going to have to worry about making keys or any of this stuff. It'll all be handled for you using a UI. But first, the app will make your keys. Then it will sign them with your payment keys, right? So the account that holds the algo you want to bring online, you got to sign the staking keys with that account. And again, that'll all be handled for you. And then you submit that transaction to the network, saying to the Algorand blockchain, hey, I want to bring my account online. And then we have a small delay of 300 rounds or so, and that's for security purposes, to ensure that people can't try to game the system. But within 300 rounds, which is about 15 minutes, your account will be online and you will be actively earning rewards. So essentially from 0 to earning rewards within 15 minutes on a Mac Mini, easy peasy lemon squeezy, and we're going to have an app to help you.
But what I really want to know is, how much am I getting?
Yes. Well, Mark, as my presentation said, big and juicy. I nearly feel sorry for other networks who've already been involved in the staking game, because, of course, typically the amount of rewards over time drops down. I mean, Bitcoin's a great example of this. It started, I think, at 50 coins a block, if I remember correctly. Then it was like 25, and it dropped, and it dropped, and it dropped. And the halvenings. Monero is the same. It kind of came down over time. And typically, rewards are biggest when the networks launch staking for the first time. And so for us, it's the same. We're starting off with a much bigger reward than I think most networks that are out there. And so to give you an idea, we kind of modeled a number of different ways of kind of predicting how much one would earn. And there's lots of knobs, right? Because it depends on how many people get involved. It depends on how much stake is online. It depends on how many fees are in a block. As how many fees were spent in a given block. It depends on the reward. On the bonus that the Algorand Foundation are going to pay. But we modeled it on the following basis. If you were to bring online 100 algo, and of course I mentioned if you want to bring on a vanilla node, it has to be over 30,000. But let's say you put 100 algo into a peer-to-peer staking pool. And the block rewards are tiny. Let's say they're negligible, like 0.01 algo. And the block time is 2.8 seconds. And the starting reward, as the Algorand Foundation intend to pay, is 10 algo. You would see approximately 6.6 algo returned over the course of a year. So and by the way, that assumes about 17% of the supply online. So about 1.7 billion algo being online.
Maybe let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about the other options, because not everybody's going to run a node. Obviously, I think you need to be a little bit geeky to be able to run a node. You have to understand, command line language and stuff like that. So I think it does take some effort. And so how about people that don't want to do it? How about people that don't want to learn Unix or Linux to be able to kind of run a node? So what are the options available for everybody else?
Sure.
maybe Min, you can talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
about like what
Yeah.
are, because there's a bunch of like ecosystem projects that
we're so
are
excited.
participating, that are excited about this, and that are
Super
offering
excited,
all
yeah.
kinds of different options to stake, right?
Yeah, no, we've been thinking about this quite a bit ever since John and the team have been thinking about how to implement consensus. We've been thinking about, well, how do we get the ecosystem to actually participate, get the users and the community and the ecosystem to participate. So I think the best way, so there are a lot of different options, as you guys know, and Fred, and I know you guys were on a community call yesterday and you guys talked about the different options, so I can share that as well. We sort of want to think about who would be running these nodes. So to your point, Mark, not everybody's going to want to run their own nodes for consensus. Although John and his team has built the terminal UI, so the TUI implementation for anybody that do want to run these nodes, they can spin it up and participate in consensus. So that's one way for your Raspberry Pi Android phone. And then we have of course, what I'm super excited about is where staking is going to bring liquid staking potentially into our ecosystem. And we're very excited to have, Folks Finance and Tinyman and Compex thinking really hard about this. And they've, announced that they're going to launch their own sort of liquid staking solution. And that in itself is exciting, because then that also brings a ton of potential new DeFi opportunities to the ecosystem that we haven't had in the past. So I think that's super cool. And that will be very easy, right? You can just do it directly on their platform. And then we have, for those that don't want to do liquid
And it
staking,
doesn't require any of the 30,000 algo minimum, right?
and it does not require any of the
take a
30,000.
lot
Right.
at a lot
The
lower amount.
30,000 minimum is only if you're running your own own staking. Yeah, exactly. Oh no, for staking. So it's very easy. And I think, knowing Folks Finance, knowing Tinyman, and knowing Compex, they're all about building a super easy experience for the users. So it's funny because I've talked to a few folks in the ecosystem who are like, I'm going to split my algos. They want to try this and try that. So the other option is, of course, Patrick and the team at Transaction Labs built Ready Pools, which is a way to pool. And I think, Mark, you've corrected me in the terminology here. It's called the staking pools as another option, where users can, basically, it's a pool, right? Like anybody can spin up a pool, say Min's pool, and Mark, if you don't want to run your own, you're welcome to join my pool and earn the reward.
Create the CMO pool. I'm going to create
the CMO pool. No. I'm going to create the ecosystem team pool. Well, actually, we should create our own.
I'm sure there's going to be a JAWS pool too.
There's going to be a based CTO pool for sure.
No way. Okay. All right. This is going to be a pool competition right now.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I mean, that's it's basically, exactly. Like we can create our own little gamification of pools within our own ecosystem, which I think is a really good option for us to have. And then, of course, the third.
And so any node runner can basically create a pool. Right?
Any node runner can deploy this. Yeah, exactly. Deploy a contract and create a pool.
And you can configure, right? Like there's little knobs you can tweak on the pool, so you can set your fee. For example, on the base CTO pool, because I want to make as much money as possible, I'm going to have extremely high fees. But like the privilege of being in the pool is worth the fee, and so
so that's going to be an exclusive pool. So obviously the fee can be higher, right?
And then you can actually set like the limit on the pool. So like you can be, and you can set the minimum. So you can say, well, I'm only going to let people who are millionaires join my pool, and it's for exclusive, super cool people. And so like, you can really play with the parameters to try to really make it as cool as possible.
Or make it,
Well, I can create my pool and say, if you want an Algorand CAN, participate in the CMO pool.
Oh, wow.
Like
the competition
like
is strong.
Yes,
yeah, no, but that's actually the whole point of being able to create your own pools and figure out how to attract users. It's not just a race to the bottom. There are other things that we can kind of play around, the parameters to attract new users. And by the way, I also think the opportunity is not just for folks that are holding algos, but it's folks that are new to algos to come and participate, right? And so I think the pool is a very it's a fun idea to be able to use the different levers to kind of incentivize different users, different types of users to come and stake. And then I just want to kind of say, in addition to the pools, there's another option called, again, Mark, I think I'm using the right term here, to be consistent, the delegated pool.
Delegated staking.
Oh, delegated staking.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's not really a pool. So delegated staking, which, I'm pretty proud of this one because Valar, which is the project that's launching this, the delegated staking came out of our hackathon and was the winner at Decipher, and also participated in our incubator program that we ran over the last couple of months. And they've really come out and are launching this fantastic product to allow users to delegate their algos to a node to participate in consensus. So this is slightly different from a pool because it's not a pool that anybody can participate. I think they actually are only able to accept a certain amount of delegated accounts to be able to run their node for balancing the load and optimizing performance and all that stuff. But that's another option. If you don't want to stake within a pool, you can delegate your stake to somebody else, to the excess capacity that John's going to have on his node, on his Mac Mini or Mac Pro. Yeah.
So if you're let's say you're an Algorand community member, or you're coming over, you've been kind of trying to stake on Solana, or you've been like of doing this on Ethereum, and you're like, oh, this sounds really, really interesting. How do you think this is going to play out? Like, any kind of advice as to for like newbies who've never done this before on Algorand? Is like, where should they be running a node? Should liquid staking?
Yeah.
Like, what are the pros and the cons? Like, what kind of advice can we give people that kind of are new to this?
Yeah, I mean, this is my personal view on this. I think so. The easiest thing to do is one of the liquid staking options, right? Because again, these are projects that already have a pretty good user interface. So it's just going to be a click, click, click kind of process. So for newbies, I say that's the easiest platform to start participating in consensus. I think for for folks that want to control, but once you participate in a liquid staking option, you no longer have control of your algos, right? And so for those that want a little bit more control and more flexibility in how they participate in consensus, and they want to join a cult, the John Woods cult, or they want to join the CAN campaign, I think that's where the ready pools can really be effective. And then for those that really want to hold on to their algos and not have it be locked up in a smart contract like a ready pool, the delegated staking is the way to go. Is you still have your keys, you're just delegating your algos to this node. So I think along the spectrum of there may be two axes, right? There's the user interface, how easy is it to work on it, and then there's the control, basically, control of the algos at the end of the day. So I think depending on where you fall on those two axes, you have a lot of different options to stake.
Maybe one last question before we move on to the Algorand campaign. I'm excited to talk about. Maybe one last question, John, for you on like can you talk a little bit about the Algorand Foundation's perspective on this? Like the foundation is currently staking like, I think 70% or something like that. The whole stake is basically foundation owned. Is the foundation going to get 70% of the rewards? And how is this going to happen over time? Like what's our perspective on, in 1 year, 2 years from now, what stake should the foundation still have in this?
Right. So it's a great question. The thing is, the aim for consensus incentivization, i.e. staking rewards, and the aim for peer-to-peer is to maximally decentralize the Algorand network so that it brings the most value to people who are using it. The more decentralized a decentralized network is, the more it's worth putting into your technology stack to do the kind of things that Algorand is great at The Algorand Foundation won't be taking any rewards. We're going to pass the rewards. So what happens is, if we propose a block that's a winner in that, as soon as staking rewards go live, essentially the network will see that although our accounts are online, and although we were the proposer of a block, they'll see that we are marked as not to be given the reward. And so the reward will just essentially stay in the fee sink, and then it will go to the next person who is eligible for the reward. And so our intention is to not only not take any rewards, but to slowly and carefully leave the staking set. So what this means is we want to reduce our stake footprint from, as you said, 60, 70% of the network down to something much more reasonable and much more decentralized, like around 5 to 10%. I think if you look across the various proof of stake networks that are out there, whether they're pure proof of stake, regular proof of stake, or otherwise, most of the foundations on those proof of stake networks will have some position where they stake. Solana for sure does it, as an example. I think it's reasonable to have some small percentage of stake be run by a foundation, because they are a good actor within the ecosystem. But of course, we don't want to have any kind of majority of stake. And so we have a plan, and we're still, I think, fleshing out the final details of it. But essentially what will happen is, as stake on the network organically increases, so for example, as 50 million algo floods in from the community to add to the total stake on the network, we will remove 50 million algo, as an example, from our active stake that we run, with the intention of never bringing it back online. And, like I said, as more algo comes in from the community, we will reduce our stake until we represent, and this is the kind of ideal state, until we represent, say, 5, 10% of the total stake, and the community is 90, 95% of the total stake. And indeed, hopefully, when those percentages are hit, and we're very small and the community is very big, hopefully the total algo that's being staked and being online at that point is higher than it is today. So currently we have 1.3 billion, or about 13% of all algo in existence is being staked. I think, there's no right number, but I think if you look at something like Ethereum, you might see numbers more like 25%. I think if we can get closer to 20% of the algo being staked, where the foundation and folks like the foundation are a negligible portion of that stake, then it will have been a great success. And so that's where we want to go to. We want to go to a place where we have 15, 17, 20% of all algo in existence out there securing the network, where the foundation is probably something like, 5% of that, 7% of that, and where the community are earning all the rewards.
Great. So shall we move to our second topic?
Let's do it.
The marketing campaign.
By the way, Mark, can I have one of those cans or no? Like, what's happening?
If you participate in my pool.
Have a can.
That sounds like you're issuing an unlicensed security, sir.
So let's talk about the campaign. Like, I'm very excited about this, and maybe just as a way to tee this up, we've been talking about, and the community's been talking a lot about, like, hey, we should do more marketing. We have the best technology out there, and like, why are we not talking about it, and stuff like that. And so we've always had a plan, as I kind of mentioned at the Cypher, to become more aggressive with our marketing. And so the main goal of the marketing campaign has always been to kind of attract more projects to the ecosystem, and raise the awareness amongst developers, but also amongst crypto communities, about how superior Algorand's technology is and the things that Algorand can do in the real world. And so that was the original kind of idea going in. And as we started thinking about this and started, we've done a lot of like work, towards the Python developer community, right? Like, after we launched native Python, we saw there's a big opportunity to bring in kind of more traditional Python developers into the ecosystem, start developing projects. And so there's a couple of things that we kind of learned from that experience. And one is that it's not enough to say to a Python developer that, hey, native Python is available on Algorand. So you should pick Algorand as your blockchain to develop on, because a lot of Python developers actually don't know what to do with blockchain. And it goes kind of our original conversation that we had in the beginning of this podcast is like, blockchain still has a bit of a negative reputation outside of the crypto Twitter bubble. And so a lot of people just don't know what the blockchain can do. And so we learned a lot from that. And so we as we started thinking about creating a campaign, is we started thinking about how can we not only talk about Algorand and the Algorand technology, but also how can we create an educational component to this, right? And talk about the things you can do with a blockchain, and specifically the things you can do with Algorand. And so that was kind of one learning here. And so it also gives us an opportunity to actually showcase our ecosystem projects. We have so many great ecosystem projects that people don't know about. And so, and I noticed this when I talk to folks that are in other ecosystems, a lot of people haven't heard of Lofty, or haven't heard of Travelex, or haven't heard of Hesapay. And we have all these projects that are doing building meaningful scale in real world use cases that nobody's ever heard of. So for us, talking about use cases also means we can put all of our existing projects on a pedestal and showcase what like a blockchain can really achieve. And so that was one key thing that we were trying to achieve this campaign. And the second thing, the second thing that we're trying to achieve with this is we start realizing, well, we can't really focus narrowly on developers only, because going through kind of a funnel where you attract a developer, you get them to download AlgoKit, they start experimenting, they participate in the boot camp, maybe then they'll go to a hackathon, maybe they'll start testing. And so by the time you actually have a project that is operating at scale on mainnet, I think it's going to take a long time. And so we also want to kind of accelerate the impact that the campaign can have by not only focusing on developers, but also focusing on entrepreneurs. Who may or may not be technical in nature, but have an idea of what to do with a blockchain project, and then show them how they can actually get their vision done with Algorand. And thirdly, not only entrepreneurs, but also enterprise customers, because we have a lot of like enterprise customers that are using Algorand today. There's lots of opportunities, specifically in tokenization, in supply chain. There's like so many kind of enterprise use cases where blockchain is super helpful. And so having that kind of like focusing on decision makers, people within enterprise customers that have the budget, that have the resources, that have the engineers, like show them how they can kind of integrate blockchain. And John, you talk a lot about that, right? About blockchain being like, an operating system. It should be part of your tech stack, right? Like how do we basically show those types of decision makers that, yes, this is why you should include blockchain as part of your tech stack, and here are the things you can do with it, again leading with use cases. So that's kind of how we set it up, and that's the thinking that went into this campaign. And so the challenge now is that we're asking this campaign to do a lot, right? We're talking about use cases, going after developers, entrepreneurs, enterprise customers. We want to reach out to other crypto communities and invite them to come over in the same way as kind of Finboot came over from Ethereum to us. And so we're asking this campaign to do a lot. And so that's always a challenge with these things, is how you put something together that I think makes sense and can achieve all of those goals, and can also be used to talk about our technology in addition to talking about use cases. And I think we've come up with this concept that can actually achieve this. And the concept is centered around the idea of, can a blockchain do that, right? With the answer being Algorand CAN. And I think that very, very simple kind of mechanic, right? Where you ask a question, can a blockchain do that? And the answer is Algorand CAN, gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility to fit anything underneath that idea. And to me, that's really exciting, because you can talk about supply chain, right? You can talk about payments, right? I can make payments, here, there, everywhere. Can the blockchain do that? Yeah, Algorand can. But you can also, beyond talking about use cases, you can also talk about technology, right? Or you can talk about launches. Like instant finality, right? Can a blockchain do that? Algorand can. Staking, right? Staking without slashing. Can a blockchain do that? Algorand can. And so it gives you this kind of very, very flexible mechanism to basically create a campaign that allows us to talk about use cases, allows us to talk about our projects, allows us to talk about technology, allows us to talk about new product launches that we're doing. And that's the definition really of a brand campaign. A brand campaign needs to be a campaign that can stretch, right? You can stretch it across all of the different use cases. And that's, I think, what we're trying to achieve here. Sorry, long monologue here. Long monologue.
Well, there's so much packed in it. So I think I actually really appreciate you teasing out the specifics of like what we were trying to achieve and who we were trying to target and what the message we were hoping to deliver kind of all are packed into this one campaign, because I think it's actually quite insightful. Like it's been thought through very, very carefully, that it's not just developers, but it's developers, it's entrepreneurs, it's partners, it's enterprises. And here's a very, I think it's super fun. I think it's super fun.
It is great. I think it's wonderful. And like, it's the exact kind of, marketing that I think we need, in the sense that like, it's not a traditional product, right? A blockchain or developer tools or a platform like Algorand. And you need something that is a bit of a meme. That's something like a bit of a mind warm, if you like, where, and it's very hard to hit on those. And so I think it's wonderful. And I'm delighted that we are definitely gaining mind share with all of these quirky ideas for how we market it.
Exactly.
And so what I'm excited about too is, if it's like the way let's talk a little bit about kind of the execution of this, right? So the general idea, I can explain what the general idea is and the whole concept behind it. So how do we execute on this? So I think there's a few components there. And first, let me show you this. I think it'd be cool to show you this. So we create this website. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So we create this website. Can a blockchain do that? Right. And so visually, we're creating this kind of new world. And so we're using collages, right? And so we take these elements like that are virtual and real world and like real people, bringing them all together into these kind of fun little animations. And so it's kind of like a world creation type of visual. And what I really like about this, first of all, is like it's quirky, it feels fresh, it feels modern. But it also it feels real world, right? Like, and that's the whole thing about Algorand, is like we're designed for real world scale, and so we're trying to create this world where you can actually see it come to life, and you can see distinct kind of scaling. And so that's what these collages will allow us to do. And also it gives us the flexibility, again, to talk about use cases or staking or anything we want. It gives us the flexibility to bring this kind of world, the Algorand world, if you want, to life. And so, so visually, that's how we're basically going about this. And so this website, to me, I'm like very proud of this website because it's completely use case driven. And so this is a website basically that shows us everything that's happening in our ecosystem, all the projects that are delivering at scale. And so I'm so excited about actually working with all these projects, and we've worked closely with them over the last couple of months to create all of these different use cases and all of these different case studies, and so and put them all on the website. So it's really a showcase basically of everything that's happening in our ecosystem and the projects that are actually delivering at scale today. And so this is not a promise, this is not a hype. It's like all the stuff that's happening, and that's happening at scale. And so you can kind of browse through them. You can go by categorization, you can go tokenization, you can look at data integrity, finance and payments, sustainability, etc. And then you can basically dive deeper into any of these different kind of use cases and learn more about, for instance, SAP, what they do, why they use Algorand, the key benefits of kind of using a solution like this on a blockchain, the statistics that go along with it, the partners that they have, and you can see it's all real. It's all happening today, and so that's what's so exciting about this campaign. We kind of, as Algorand, we're one of the few blockchains that has the receipts. Like we can show how it works in the real world, and we can lean in on that, and that's super exciting.
It's a beautiful, beautiful page. And Mark, we'll link the website in the show notes for those who are tuning in as well. I think that way they can check it out themselves. Can I say I was on it yesterday, just by chance, of course, and I was watching the Eureka video, the Eureka team, right? They're Mongolia, Singapore based. They have this tokenization platform that's really helping to bring kind of like sustainability carbon credits to citizens in Mongolia. They get to earn credits by changing from coal to solar. I mean, just the story of what they've done, and then the vision of what they're hoping to achieve. Like in Mongolia, I think he said they think they can save 2 to 5 million tons of emissions. I mean, that is incredible. I mean, so anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, actually, I didn't, some of the stuff I know what the projects are building, but the story that you guys put together to tell with the founders are incredible. So the videos are so beautiful as well. So nice job on that too.
Yeah, and then of course the other part of the campaign that gets John excited, of course, is the Algorand CANs. You can see them here. This is actually from DEF CON, so we launched this at DEF CON, which was fun. But the fun part of this too is that anybody can create cans like this, right? So we can create cans for like any one of our kind of projects, like Lofty,
wow, yeah,
Lofty can, right? Or TravelX can.
Oh my gosh, John, you're traveling.
Care Wallet can, right? Finboot can. I love this one. Finboot can. So so we can have a lot of fun with this, and we will have a lot of fun with this. And so so I'm very excited about this. And then, so where we're going to take this, maybe that's the last part here that we should talk about. So where we're going to take this. So you'll start seeing us pushing this out into the real world. And so, of course, it'll be all over Twitter for sure. But of course, we're taking it much further than that. Like we're doing a takeover of the Brave browser next week. We're kind of sponsoring Bloomberg's crypto newsletter, as well as Forbes crypto newsletter. It'll go into kind of developer centric areas as well. And so you'll start seeing this pop up pretty much everywhere starting next week. So it's kicking off officially next week, and then it'll run through mid-February. So that's where we are. And then we have within our marketing team, we have a growth team that's specifically looking into KPIs and looking at how does this campaign perform? Does it deliver on the metrics that we wanted to deliver? So we've specifically established a number of like funnels that we track very closely, like entrepreneurs. How many entrepreneurs are we attracting? How many developers are we attracting to download algo kits? How many enterprise customers have basically reached out and want to talk to us? And so for each one of these things, we have dedicated marketing funnels and activities aligned with that to make sure that we engage with people as proactively as we can. So I think it's a very, very comprehensive campaign. Of course, all the activities around staking rewards will fit into this as well. And the last point I want to mention is I was in New Jersey yesterday, where we're shooting another community video. That'll be our launch video for staking rewards. So I can't wait to see that one go live as well. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Can you give a teaser of when we might be able to see that come out?
Well, as soon as we launch,
okay.
in December, that's when the video will go out as well.
Okay.
And so we had a great time talking to. We had like four community members there, and so had a great time. And so I think the video is going to be killer.
I saw a picture of the set. It looks fantastic. Yeah. That's great.
I think we covered a lot today, no?
My gosh. Yeah. So much. And I know this, we didn't get to have Fred join us for this episode because we had so much to talk about, and he was quite busy with all of our community calls, but we should definitely invite him back next time as well for updates on the ecosystem, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not the same without Fred.
Yeah, that suit is very special.
Oh, Yeah, the suit. You're right. I knew something was missing. No, but there was so much to talk about. So I'm so glad we did this, Mark. Thanks for taking us through the marketing campaign and all the staking stuff. I guess, is there anything else?
I would just like to finally request that, like, whatever cans are shipped to Ireland do contain some beer to maximize, as you say, Mark, the fun that we will be having.
We should do competition around this. Like if you do this or this, like we send you like a 6-pack.
Yeah,
Algorand CAN.
great idea.
Wow, maybe we can start our staking pool competition, and whoever has the most amount of algos in their pools, we can get a 6-pack.
Yeah.
That's how we're gonna do this.
Yeah. So, but I think there's a lot coming up, right? We have the India Summit that's happening, I think, early December.
That's right. December. Yep.
What's very exciting is that UNDP launched the next phase of their blockchain academy, where they're going to start onboarding like thousands and thousands of people and kind of educate them about what the blockchain can do. And so, yeah, I think there's so much stuff that is happening. I think it's so exciting, and so we should talk about some of these things in one of the upcoming podcasts as well. Maybe do a deep dive on India would actually be cool to do, because there's so many. I was on India
The X
podcast
space.
last week,
Yeah.
and so it was so much fun to see like all the activity that's happening there. These projects that are making a tremendous amount of progress.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
and we
the
actually
investments that we've made investments in 5 of these companies, and so
in 5 of these startups. And in fact, actually, I think we sent maybe 10 projects or founders to DEF CON in Bangkok as well, along with a couple of the startups that finished the incubator as well. So there was a pretty big turnout at the cafe in Bangkok. I know, John, you weren't there, but you would have met them. And it was fantastic. I think they had a really great session with the DevRel team and just like helping them build. There's some really fun projects that are coming out of India and the India Summit, right? Mark, to your point, we actually have some pretty big partnerships in India that just launched, and we're excited to expand further. So a deep dive into India would be really fun at some point on the podcast for sure.
And also, one last thing is that we're working on the 2025 roadmap, the tech roadmap as well. So we can jump into that as well to give people an insight into the types of things we'll be working on for the protocol and its orbiting tools, etc. In 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think this does it for this episode. Let's wrap it up. And thank you, Min. Thank you, John, for having another great chat. And we'll talk again very soon on episode 3.
Cheers, guys.
For sure. Thank you, Mark. All right. Bye, everyone.